Any given day in Donald Trump's administration can be defined by one of three words: chaos, corruption, or criminality. And today we saw all three of those come together in a breaking news story out of the New York Times reporting on Donald Trump's own DUI hire in Pete Hegseth, who somehow, some way has another Signal scandal. The one group chat was not enough for Pete because he decided he'd break the law with another. And what he shared in there and with who will shock and disturb you. We're going to get into all of it and the MAGA civil war that is erupting because of this decision by Hegseth. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into this story from the New York Times, I feel like we need some context in what just happened that might have led to this leak out of the Pentagon, and that was the firing of three officials that was broken down right here on MSNBC.
New alarming reports reveal deepening turmoil at the Pentagon under Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Politico reporting Hegseth's chief of staff will soon step down, and that three other top officials were put on leave and then fired over their role in the Signal chat scandal. In a Washington Post report, the three officials claim they were never told what they were investigated for or if there was even a real investigation of leaks to begin with. Joining us now is former Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh. Sabrina, thanks for joining us. And, you know, Hegseth's already shorthanded leadership team is now without four of the senior officials I was just describing. He also oversaw the removal of almost a dozen senior military leaders, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Is this normal new chief, new team, or is there a plus in this? And what is that plus?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, no, nothing about this is normal. You don't see an immediate purge of your senior leadership that you have not only elected to be around you, but appointed yourself as a Secretary of Defense. So again, what's being reported too is that these individuals were fired because of unauthorized disclosures, whether that be to the press or elsewhere. And what's ironic here is that the Secretary of Defense, the person who leads, our men and women in uniform and our civilians, also put unauthorized, classified information into a commercial texting app, and yet there have been no consequences for him. He has not been held responsible. He hasn't even, gone before Congress to explain his behavior. So, of course, different circumstances for different people, but nothing about this is normal. And I think, Congress and others should really look into, not only the firings of these individuals, but also, of course, looking into Pete Hegseth.
Let's dig a little deeper here, Sabrina. The three fired officials, they're claiming that unnamed Pentagon officials slandered their character with baseless attacks, their words. They also say they don't know if there is still an active investigation into the Signal leak. When we think of the Pentagon, and you know this culture better than I do, we're thinking of decorum, rank and file, and process and structure. This doesn't seem to be the case, at least based on what they are saying.
Yeah, and the Pentagon is an organization that certainly not only thrives on structure and order, but there is due process, and that's the case usually with any organization or agency. So to see these firings and to have these individuals speak out and actually say we have no idea why we were removed from our jobs. Either means that there hasn't been an official investigation launched into their removings, or they're just not aware of it.
So I wanted to start with that story because there is a reason we are getting this new reporting about Pete Hegseth, why more information is coming out about his Signal scandal. And it's because those close to the matter have started to reveal it. Now, I don't know exactly who those people could be, who those sources are, but it is not difficult to put together some Pentagon officials being fired unjustly and without cause and new information coming out about Pete Hegseth. But I don't want to speculate anymore. I just want to get into this story right here. Hegseth said to have shared attack details in second Signal chat. The defense secretary sent sensitive information about strikes in Yemen to an encrypted group chat that included his wife and brother, people familiar with the matter said. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shared detailed information about forthcoming strikes in Yemen on March 15th at a private Signal group chat that included his wife, brother, and personal lawyer, according to four people with the knowledge of that chat. Some of those people said the information Mr. Hegseth shared on the Signal chat, including the flight schedules for the FA-18 Hornets targeting the Houthis in Yemen, essentially the same attack plans that he shared on a separate Signal group chat the same day that mistakenly included the editor of The Atlantic. Mr. Hegseth's wife, Jennifer, a former Fox News producer, is not a Defense Department employee, but she has traveled with him overseas and drawn criticism for accompanying her husband to sensitive meetings with foreign leaders. Mr. Hegseth's brother Phil and Tim, who continues to serve as his personal lawyer, both have jobs in the Pentagon, but it is not clear why they would need to know about upcoming military strikes aimed at the Houthis in Yemen. This previously unreported existence of the second Signal chat, in which Mr. Hegseth shared highly sensitive military information, is the latest in a series of developments that have put his management and judgment under scrutiny. Unlike the chat in which The Atlantic was mistakenly included, the newly revealed one was created by Mr. Hegseth. It included his wife and about a dozen other people from his personal and professional inner circle in January, before his confirmation as Defense Secretary, and was named Defense Team Huddle. The people familiar with the chat said he used his private phone rather than his government one to access the Signal chat. Mr. Hegseth created the separate Signal group initially as a forum for discussing routine administrative or scheduling information, two of the people familiar with the chat said. The people said Mr. Hegseth typically did not use the chat to discuss sensitive military operations and said it did not include other cabinet-level officials. Mr. Hegseth shared information about the Yemen strikes in the Defense Team Huddle chat at roughly the same time he was putting the same details in other Signal group chats that included senior U.S. officials and The Atlantic, and people familiar with Hegseth in the group chat said. So Pete Hegseth just letting it all rip. All of our information he has decided to share with exclusively the people closest to him who should not have access to it. But this is no surprise. Pete Hegseth has had lots of experience poorly managing much smaller organizations than the Pentagon. So the fact that he's been unable to do this job in only the first couple of months shouldn't come as no surprise. We talked about this. We talked about not only his personal failings, but his professional failings and how he was unable to do any job comparable to this one, why it was just inconceivable that he would be the Secretary of Defense and that he still has this job. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, there have been firings throughout the Pentagon of those viewed as disloyal to Hegseth and to try to scapegoat other people for his own, I don't want to call it drunk texting, but potential drunk texting in his Signal group chat with Mike Waltz and Tulsi Gabbard. He is trying to put the blame elsewhere, but it's clear that the blame lies with Pete alone. And he is putting people's lives in danger, as Senator Mark Kelly talked about the last time we got a breaking news Signal scandal, which seems crazy to say that we're doing the last time already. But this is what Senator Kelly had to say.
Let me ask you another question about national security. I was struck by this very well-reported piece in the Times about the Signal chat leak. This was talking to particularly military pilots about their reaction to it. One former senior Defense Department official with military experience said Mr. Hegseth's test describing launch times and the type of strike aircraft was indeed classified information that could have jeopardized pilots' lives if it had been released or obtained. I saw a few viral TikToks of military spouses expressing rage about this. What do you think as a former naval aviator yourself?
Who had to walk out to an airplane in the middle of the night to go on a strike like this when Dick Cheney was Secretary of Defense, I think. Never for 1 second did I think the Secretary of Defense was going to put me at risk. And it is significant risk. They're saying this wasn't classified. This is the most sensitive information we have in the military. When you're going to send service members, troops, pilots, feet dry in this case, over land in a contested area where they have a significant surface-to-air missile capability.
Yeah,
they have SA-3s, SA-6s.
Yeah.
I've been an SA-6 blow up next to my airplane on my first combat mission.
Wow.
That missile can shoot down an F-18 without a doubt. If they know you're coming, when you're coming, the direction you're coming from, and on top of that, the time on target, they know to have all their resources focused on shooting you down. And that helps them significantly. So, of course, these pilots are upset about it. Pete Hegseth put them at significant risk. He crossed a line no Secretary of Defense should ever cross, and he needs to be held accountable for this.
What do you make of the lying? I really find this part in some ways some of the most unnerving. I mean, to say it's not classified, it's like, well, the timing of a surprised.
I'm not even sure what they mean by that. Maybe they meant because it doesn't say secret or top secret on the signal chain.
Right, but of course it is.
Of course it is. It came off of a piece of paper that probably said top secret at the top, or he got it over the phone from the head of CENTCOM, the combatant commander, that said, here's, and by the way, you look at the times, it wasn't around a certain time. It's like 15:16, 3:16 p.m., or 14:10, which is 2:10 p.m. These are exact times that came from a plan. Now they're saying, well, these aren't war plans. I'll give them that. I mean, a war plan would be joint forces.
Sure, yeah.
It would include allies. This is a strike plan. These plans, by the way, are also planned by those pilots that are in the cockpit. So they planned the strike.
Right.
They communicated it to leadership. It got approved. And then the Secretary of Defense decides to throw it out on an unsecured platform, which, by the way, could have gotten to the Russians, could have gotten to the Iranians, and ultimately to the Houthis.
It also struck me that Jim Himes, Democratic congressman, said this the other day, that, there was no real reason to do it. That it was almost kind of showing off. He didn't have to send that
100%.
that way, right? Is that right?
Or he could have sent it afterwards.
Right.
If that would have come out 15 minutes after those airplanes got back to the aircraft carrier, those guys were safely aboard. If you want to send that stuff out, fine. That information is not valuable to anybody anymore. Not really. But to do it beforehand is such a disservice to what these guys are about to do. And I'm confident, I'm sure their spouses are upset. It is risky to go fly an airplane into enemy territory and try to get bombs on target and then get out before you get shot down. And now you have the guy in the highest position in DOD is making that job potentially making that job so much harder for you.
There is reporting today that he's hired his brother at the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth,
to do
liaison, I think, is what he's doing.
What's his brother's background?
I think he might have had a podcast company. Don't quote me on that. I think that's what it was.
This
is a guy who said he's going to bring Merritt back to the Department of Defense, fired the chair of the Joint Chiefs because he was too woke, I guess. Black man who talked about being black in America.
Yeah.
And do you think he's restoring merit to the Department of Defense?
With hiring his brother, who probably needed a job, or maybe gave him a raise from his previous job, or wants to have his brother around. How could his brother possibly be the most qualified job for whatever this is? Whatever this job happens to be. It's not his brother. If you need somebody in this position, advertise the position and find the most qualified person. This is the Department of Defense we're talking about. This is the organization that keeps all of us safe.
Pete Hegseth is routinely putting American service members and the entire country's national security in jeopardy with his just complete ineptitude. This is not a smart guy. Clearly that continues to play out, and it's time he be held accountable. And I know there were some rumblings at first in the first signal scandal about maybe Pete getting the exit, getting the stinky boot out. But it seems like that pressure's really going to start to build. Pete was already doing some firings of his own. I would not be shocked if more firings came as MAGA starts to eat their own over these mounting scandals. And we are going to be calling out that every single day. And if you want to support it, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.